honor of that.
Thank you. If you'll please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together tonight. Please be with these candidates, provide them with wisdom, provide them with opportunity to share their thoughts. Be with those that are here present so that we may listen, gain a better understanding, and prepare ourselves for a very important vote coming up in May. Please forgive us for our many sins. Be with those that are traveling, so have a safe trip. Those who are sick, so they might get well. And take care of all Republicans as we move forward as a country. In God's name we pray.
Amen. Amen.
You and I live in what I consider the most important county in the best state in the best country.
No kidding.
There's two reasons I think that happens. One is the type of people that we elect out of this county, much less the type of politicians we produce out of this county. And so I encourage you to spend time listening tonight and making sure you're ready for this vote. I also want to tell you that I think the other thing that makes us special is the veterans that are in the room. Since many are already standing, please raise your hand if you're a veteran. Our veterans assure us the opportunity to do something that I don't think is Democrat or Republican. I think it is flat out American. And that is to say the pledge to our flag. Amen. If you'll join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to the greatest state and the greatest country.
Woo! Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. I'm probably going to talk loud because I'm not sure if you can hear or not. I just wanted to welcome you on behalf, I'm Jan Kylo, president of the Republican Women of Arlington. And of course,
Go Jan!
Woohoo! The other club that is hosting tonight also, of course, is president of that club is Mark Hansen, and you'll hear from him.
Go Mark!
I just wanted to let you know that as boards and as members, we are always looking for ways to give and to get people involved. And we were so glad that this opportunity came up. But what really helped us was we were willing to put the bill for this nice room and those nice chairs you're sitting in. But we had three marvelous sponsors that came up with the money. One of them is our liberty-loving lady, Dolores Pell. We have two state representatives, David Cook and Tony Tinderbolt. They're busy saving Texas, you know, so they're real busy. I can verify that. So we are just so glad that you could come. And I also wanted to give a special thanks. The liaison, Mark and I only see each other at events. The liaison is Ann Coker. When we sit down at my board meeting and board meeting, she gets all together. And I just want you to know that she works really hard. And by your being here tonight, that's a reward and a compliment to her for her planning, because we appreciate that very much.
Ian, stand up.
Ian's in the middle of the second row. There So we are so grateful that you are here, that our candidates are here, and I just wanted to give a little commercial. Republican Women of Arlington meet for lunch at a place that's about 6 months old. The lady had a catering company for 10 years, and it's called Simply Davoon. It's on Park Road near Bowen, right across the street from the old Stripling Cox. If you've been here long enough to know about Stripling Cox, but it's Antigo Christian now. Yep. But we meet there on the third Thursday of the month. Now we have a recess in the summertime, so you better hurry. April and May meetings are coming up. And you can always look on our Facebook page to get information. So we are so glad that you're here. We appreciate you coming. And let's turn it over to Mark.
Thanks everybody for coming. I'm Mark Hansen, president of the Arlington Republican Club. Thanks, Rick, for a wonderful prayer and a pledge. Now I'd like to introduce current elected officials. If we could just stand up. I don't think we have time to introduce ourselves, but if you're a current elected official, would you stand up? If you're a precinct chair in either Tarrant County, Navarro, or Ellis counties, could you stand up? And then, along with the Congressional District 6 election on May 1st, there's also going to be other elections. In Arlington, we have the mayor, we have the Tarrant County Community College Board of Trustees, the Arlington School District trustees, and Arlington City Council. If you're a candidate in one of these, why don't you stand up, and if you could shout out a 15-second elevator speech.
I'm Stephen Chaco. I'm running for Tarrant County College, District 3, North Arlington, Euless, that area. Please vote for me. I'm the only Republican in the race. I'm the only Republican in the race.
That's right, 15 seconds, good. Any other candidates?
How you doing? I'm Kelly Burke. I'm running for mayor of Arlington, Texas.
Woo!
And I believe that I need you guys. I don't just need your vote. I'm just speaking from the club. I need you guys to accept me in this club.
Yes.
I'm serious.
Yes.
I believe that I am the future of the club. Not just me, but all the young people that admire you. And we take our hats off to you. But now it's time to pass the baton for those who are ready to fight for you guys. And I'm in that class. But I need you to stand with me and accept me in. You know? So I'm asking everybody here to allow me to come in and be a part of you. Can you do that?
Any other candidates? Thought we have more than that. Okay, we have 2 candidates. Thank you very much. And we're all here tonight to hear from all our candidates. Some of these candidates are very new to all of us, so this candidate forum is really the best way to be able to size up and meet the candidates. And Kimberly Fitzpatrick, one of our favorite judges, is going to conduct our forum for us and introduce Nick Adams.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce Nick Adams, who I consider a personal friend. I got to know Nick, I guess it's been quite a few years ago. I met him at Dolores' house. And for those of you who don't know the FLAG organization, his organization focuses on teaching young people about the Constitution and why they should be proud Americans. Nick is a 3-time best-selling author and commentator. You might have seen him on Fox News or many other news stations. He was born and raised in Australia. He is a legal immigrant to America. Receiving a rare, extraordinary ability green card. His 2 previous books were endorsed by Chuck Norris and Sean Hannity and many other Republican leaders. He's received many major honors, but I'll mention the most important one, that he's an honorary Texan.
Yay.
Yes. So anyways, I'd like to bring up my good friend, Nick Adams.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What an honor, pleasure, and privilege it is to be able to moderate this most auspicious debate this evening for Congressional 6's special election. I want to thank both of the clubs tonight that are responsible for hosting this, the Arlington Republican Club and the Republican Women of Arlington. I have the great fortune of having a long-standing relationship with both clubs, and there you go. Although clearly I can't use a microphone. I have the great fortune of having a long-standing relationship with both clubs, and I'm delighted to and honoured to have been asked to participate here tonight. It's going to be a wonderful evening. I want to, before we get going, and I start to talk about some of the ground rules here tonight for the candidates that are present and all of you in the audience, I did want to pay tribute to the gentleman that was the congressman for this district. I didn't know Congressman Wright all that well, but I did have a few interactions with him, and I know that he had a very long-standing relationship with this community, and it was a big loss for all of us to have had that. It's a loss that I feel even more personally because I lost my father 3 weeks ago from almost the exact same thing that Congressman Wright ended up passing away from, and that is obviously COVID. And so it's a tough time for all of us, but I'm glad that we have so many people that are willing to step up to the plate, and they have some really, really big shoes to fill. So I thought it was only right to Well, I can tell you that right now we have a president that is not doing a very good job.
You're kidding.
That is to put it mildly. We have a president that is not projecting strength. We have a president that really is making America a laughingstock right around the world. And that is such an inversion from what we had just 8 weeks ago in the 45th President of the United States. I did end up being very close to President Trump. I received a presidential appointment last year. I sit on the board of the Smithsonian. The New York Times, in a rare moment of truth, declared me the president's favourite author. Since I received 12 tweets over the course of 4 years about 3 different books, suffice to say the president kind of liked what I was writing. So I will let you know, because I am rather shameless, that I do have 2 books outside, Trump and Churchill, Defenders of Western Civilization. It's got a foreword by former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich.
Yeah.
And then my most recent book is Trump and Reagan, Defenders of America, with a foreword by
Hey,
Laura
Nick,
Ingram.
this is what they look like.
There you go. Thank you very much, Laura. She's got the packet. So you please come and see us, get some information. Kimberly alluded to my non-profit flag, the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness. We are an organisation that is dedicated to promoting patriotism and teaching civics in K-12 education. In May, we have our annual gala and conference. It's going to be held in Key Biscayne in Florida at the Ritz-Carlton. We have Dennis Quaid as our keynote speaker. We also have Governor Ron DeSantis, Governor Kristi Noem, and the Mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, will all be speakers at that event. We will be celebrating a very important milestone. As of 2 weeks ago, FLAG now has at least one of our 4 student resources in the hands of more than 1 million public school students.
Right.
So we are working very hard to arrest the cultural decline that, rather tragically, we are seeing happen here in the United States with the next generation. I don't know what you guys are looking for, but when I think about what we need in Congress, what we need in the Senate, what we need in the White House, I'm looking for someone who's going to end the waste, pay back the debt, limit the government, axe political correctness, protect the borders, preserve Judeo-Christian traditions, end the culture of entitlement, cut taxes, exercise fidelity to the Constitution, and keep the peace through unquestioned military advantage. They are the things I think that we need in order to make sure that the United States of America remains the pinnacle country on this earth. So tonight's debate is going to be split up into 3 different groups. We're going to have Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3. The format for this evening is going to be a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate per group. There are going to be 4 questions for each group, and each candidate has 1 minute to respond to each of those 4 questions. Thankfully, I'm not the one keeping time, but I do understand that Anne has got a special relationship with the timing organisation. So she is going to be rather hard and quite a stickler, I think, for time, so please be aware of all of that. All the questions are in writing and have been submitted to me to be answered by each candidate. And I will also let you know that I don't have I think the phrase in America is a dog in this hunt, okay? I'm completely unbiased. I don't live in the district, and I'm doing this because I love Dolores Pell and Ann Coker and so many of you that I've known for so long.
We love you too.
So thank you very much. So that's where I am coming from. Okay, so I'd like to invite the first group to come up. The first group is Michael Ballantine, Brian Harrison, Dan Rodimer, and Travis Rodermund.
Is that white going to mess you up?
Yeah, but
So
it doesn't matter.
okay.
Wait.
I can't
Really?
control it.
Okay.
That's all it's got.
I should also mention that owing to the space limitation that we have up here, I'm going to be here at the podium, so candidates can either sit or they can choose to stand.
No.
No?
Sit.
Sit. Okay.
Is that better?
There you go. For the camera.
Okay.
So everyone's got to sit when you answer the question. Okay, very good.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay. So I'm going to open it up. Mr. Ballantine, if you could begin with a 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you all. Mike there. Mike. I'm Mike Ballantine, and I want your vote. That's why I'm here. I could talk about growing up poor with a single mom, or about my wife, who is going through the process of legal immigration, or about our American dream. I could talk about how the rest of the Republican candidates support the Constitution, just like me, and the people's Second Amendment rights. We are all pro-lifers here, anti-tax, and we want small government. The question you are asking is which one of us is the best for the 6. There are 23 choices. It's a bit of a mess. I guess it depends on what you want. Do you want a placeholder, a wallflower, a DC insider, or someone on training wheels? I have 35 years experience negotiating contracts, and 20 of them overseas. I've negotiated with generals, chief justices, and presidents. I've taught communists to be capitalists for the past 10 years. I've come to learn that Republicans value the traditions that unite us, and Democrats value the things that divide us. So I believe the 6 needs someone who will do something. Anyone can say no, or issue proclamations and talking points. Here are 3 things I want to do in my first year. Firstly, pass a climate emergency act to give governors 10 days to waive federal regulations or climate emergency. Let's avoid the next snow apocalypse. Secondly, I will work across the aisle to extend Medicare to all employees of small businesses. And finally, Medicaid to all unemployed Americans. This will cut costs for small businesses and American workers in Texas and the nation. Of course, I'm open to new ideas. Now ask the other candidates, what are they going to do? Let's hear their answer.
Thank you, Mr. Ballantine. Okay, we're going to move on to Mr. Brian Harrison.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody.
Howdy.
That's right, thank you. My name is Brian Harrison. I am from here. I am a proud member of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2004. Got a couple, good. And I've got small business experience right here in the Texas 6th Congressional District. That's what I was doing, running a small business from my home and property here in the district when I was recruited by the Trump administration, and I proudly served as Donald Trump's Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I will tell you, I am incredibly proud of the accomplishments that I was able to produce working with President Trump. From lowering drug prices, from taking a wrecking ball and slashing burdensome and costly regulations across our economy, to standing up to China. Heck, I was part of a very small delegation that President Trump sent over to Taiwan. It made them so mad they actually scrambled fighter jets when our plane got in the air. I helped him stand up Operation Warp Speed. We proved the Democrats wrong, we proved the media wrong, and we got multiple vaccines safe in the first year. And two other things we did I'm very proud of that generations of Republicans had failed to do before us. We took on the abortion industry. I took $260 million from them, and we defunded Planned Parenthood for the first time in 50 years. And also, I'm very proud that when COVID hit, my department, we used our public health authority to put up that Title 42 order that secured the border of the United States, creating the most secure border this nation has ever seen. All right, why am I running? I'm running because we're in a war. Not a traditional type of war, and I know I share the ballot in this race with several veterans, and thank you to each of you gentlemen for your service. But this is a different type of battle. This is a battle for nothing less than the future of our country. And with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Nancy Pelosi controlling every aspect of our government, we need somebody who knows how to go to Washington and somebody who has locked horns with the national media, defeated the national media, taken on the bureaucracy, defeated the bureaucracy, taken on the establishment in both parties, and defeated them. Believe me, the swamp knows my name, the swamp hates my guts, and nothing gives the swamp a worse nightmare than the phrase Congressman Harrison. I would love to have your vote. I'd be the honor of my life to represent you in Congress. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Now, I want to get this name right because he's bigger than I am. Mr. Rodermund, please.
Rodimer.
Rodimer.
Rodimer. That's close enough. Okay, Big Dan Rodimer. Well, thank you everybody for having us. My background, I was a former WWE pro wrestler. So yes, I am a fighter. I was a very successful small business owner. I'm a law school graduate from the most conservative law school in the Union. I said this the other night, some of the folks were here. I wasn't the best student, but I was a B student. I was great at debating. There's not anybody up here who's going to be able to beat me at that. That's what I'm going to take to Washington, D.C. The Democrats will not be able to hold it for me to me. Most of all, I'm a father of 6. I have 2 of my children in the back, Bella and Addis. Bella's actually 19th birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, Bella. Happy birthday. But that's what we're fighting for. That's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our children. At the end of the day, faith, family, freedom. I'm a God-fearing man that wants to fight for his children and protect his country. This race is going to come down to the voice. It's going to be the biggest voice. Who's going to go to Washington, D.C. and have the courage and their conviction to stand tall against the establishment? And who's going to be able to fight? And you're going to have to look at all these candidates. You see a bunch of them. You have to say to yourself, which one of these is going to go up there and be our voice? Who's going to be our fighter? And who's not going to back down? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to fight for you. So, with that being said, I did not write a speech like everybody else, but I look forward to being your congressman, and I will fight every day for you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Rodermund, your 2 minutes begin, sir.
Evening. My name is Travis Rodermund. I'm 36 years old. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a police officer. I'm a small business owner. I'm a veteran. And I'm a constitutional patriot. I'm here this evening because I'm angry. Americans aren't being represented well in Congress. And it's my belief that Congress, most of Congress, doesn't share our values anymore. It's like many of you, not happy with the direction the United States is headed. Make no mistake, the Marxists on the left have both hands on the steering wheel. They've taken a hard left turn, and they got their foot on the gas. I'm starting to not recognize America that I grew up in. I'm here this evening because it's time to stand up and fight. I've been a police officer in this district for the last 12 years. I started day one under the Obama administration. I've seen law enforcement officers spit on, assaulted, called racist by the media. We've been told to stand down and stand by while we watch our communities burn in the riots. And I'm telling you, law enforcement's not going to take it anymore. I'm running so that I can be a voice for all of law enforcement in Texas and the United States. It's time for law enforcement to have a seat at the table, and I'm here to fight. People keep screaming about police reform. I have the answer for reform, and hopefully I'll get a chance to share that with you. I know how to get it done. I can get it done giving us safer neighborhoods, a safer community, and a safer country. Last week, I was endorsed by the Texas Municipal Police Officers Association, backed by 30,000 proud police officers. Something I'm proud of. I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodermund. That concludes our opening statements for Group 1. We now move to the question portion of this group. Just so you know, in the interest of fairness, we have scrambled the order in which the questions, the candidates will respond to the questions for each question, so that it's much fairer. Okay, so the very first question, I will repeat the question before each person's answer. You get 1 minute to answer the following question. If elected to Congress, will you vote to return Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, and Liz Cheney to Republican leadership in the House? If you could vote to replace any or all of them, who would you prefer in these positions and why? The first candidate to respond this round is Mr. Michael Ballantine.
What a great question.
Thank you.
I would not vote for any of them. I'm sorry, but they haven't earned my vote. As far as Liz Cheney goes, she completely misrepresented her constituents. You are not sending me to Congress to vote what I think. You're sending me to Congress to vote what you think. That's ridiculous. And as for who I would replace, well, I'm a Matt Gaetz fan. And I think, despite whatever the New York Times is saying about him today, he's honest, straightforward, and he can lead us to victory in 2022. Yes. Kevin McCarthy, I don't even want to go there. So my vote is no, and my vote is for Matt Gaetz.
Thank you, Mr. Ballantine. Okay, again, Mr. Harrison, the question is, if elected to Congress, will you vote to return Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, and Liz Cheney to Republican leadership in the House? If you could vote to replace any or all of them, who would you prefer in these positions and why?
So let's start off with a couple things. When I get to Congress, I'm going to talk about the principles I'm going to vote for. I want people in leadership who are as strong fighters as Donald Trump was. Kevin McCarthy did have a very good relationship with President Trump, and as somebody who once upon a time did work for Vice President Cheney, I have been disappointed in what I'm seeing coming out of the current leadership in the House. Every vote I make on policy or on leadership will have two things in my mind. One, is it permissible under the Constitution of these United States of America? And two, is it the right thing for our men and women, my friends, my neighbors, my colleagues, all of you in this room, back home? That's how I will base every decision I make, whether it's on potential statutes or on votes for leadership.
Okay, we move on to Mr. Rodimer. Okay, if elected to Congress, will you vote to return Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, and Liz Cheney to Republican leadership in the House? If you could vote to replace any or all of them, who would you prefer in these positions and why?
So I know all these folks. I talk to them I did on a regular basis. Am I frustrated? What's going on up there? Yes. Liz Cheney, she donated to me in the past, and I'm not a fan of her. I'm not a fan of what she's done. I like her as a person. Kevin McCarthy, he's had his issues with President Trump, and I'm a Trumper, 100%, through and through. Steve Scalise, another guy who I've become friends with. But at the end of the day, when I get there, I'm going to join the Freedom Caucus. I'm as far right as you can get. I'm a Andy Biggs and a Jim Jordan guy. I believe in our constitutional freedoms. I'm a constitutional conservative, and I'm going to bring the morals and ethics that I have to Washington, D.C. And I think Jim Jordan and Andy Biggs would be great leaders.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Rodermund, if elected to Congress, will you vote to return Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, and Liz Cheney to Republican leadership in the House? If you could vote to replace any or all of them, who would you prefer in these positions and why?
So my answer, right along the line with Mike, none of them. In my opinion, it's time for Liz Cheney to go. She backstabbed us. She doesn't represent us. And again with Mike, I'm a big fan of Matt Gaetz. He's been fighting for Florida. Now he fights for the United States. He's been fighting corruption since he was in the state Senate. He's a man of his word, and I think everything he's done up to now has shown us that he can be trusted. That's my answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodermund. Okay, we move on to the second question. The Biden administration is proposing at least $4 trillion in additional spending. They have indicated they will raise taxes to help offset the spending increases. Not only will this additional spending explode the already high deficit, but this spending will burden Americans for generations to come. As a member of Congress, what part of the discretionary budget would you cut? What would you not cut? What, if any, taxes would you eliminate or cut? We'll begin with Mr. Harrison.
That is a great question. Make no mistake about it. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are hell-bent on ruining every part of the American economy. They've had the most destructive 2 months, intro 2 months, probably in the history of any presidential administration. And as the chief of staff of the largest government agency on planet Earth, the topic of cutting discretionary and mandatory spending has to be on the table. And I'm very proud of the work that I did in the Trump administration on taxes. I am the only candidate on this ballot who has personally terminated and ended unfair taxes that were harming small businesses. I did that overruling my own agency. I'm very proud to have done it. I established a federal taxpayer accountability board. That action alone is projected to save $800 million a year. I sunset more regulations than Congress has passed laws in the past 40 years through my sunset rule, and that one action alone, ladies and gentlemen, that I proudly worked with another Freedom Caucus member, Mark Meadows, on, is projected to save between $1 and $300 billion with a B dollars. I would build on those actions. I would do them across every federal branch agency, and I would introduce legislation to that effect in my first week in Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan?
I'd cut the Department of Education. I get there. I'm a school choice guy. But having 6 kids, I want the best education for them. And every child deserves the right to a great education. So when I'm your next congressman, that is one of the committees I'm gonna get on. What Biden is doing with this tax increase, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's only gonna affect our small businesses. And being a small business owner, I see that. Raising our taxes by close to 30%, it's despicable. So, when I get to Congress, I'm going to fight that.
Travis, the Biden administration is proposing at least $4 trillion in additional spending. They have indicated that they will raise taxes to help offset the spending increases. Not only will this additional spending explode the already high deficit, but this spending will burden Americans for generations to come. As a member of Congress, what part of the discretionary budget would you cut? What would you not cut? And what, if any, taxes would you eliminate or cut?
So, this is the kind of thing that just has enraged me. My great-grandkids are going to be paying off this debt to the United States. It makes me furious, and I'm sure it makes you furious. Raising taxes for businesses is inexcusable. They've already been burdened enough through the pandemic. If they raise business taxes, especially for small businesses, by 30%, you're going to see jobs go under. You're going to see businesses close their doors. One thing that I want to introduce is process improvements. If we can get agencies to go through and just get rid of the waste, get rid of the fraud, we can work through Medicare, we can work through the VA, we can get rid of this money that they're wasting. We could find trillions of dollars to put back into our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Rodermund. Mr. Ballantine. Would you like me to read the question out again?
No, just looking for the mic. Okay. All right. If I heard Brian correctly, he's going to cut discretionary and mandatory spending. I will not cut Social Security. I will not cut Medicaid. I will not cut Medicare. And we do not need this infrastructure bill. So I will not support it unless people in CD6 say, do it. If you say no, my vote will be no. I want to get H.R. 25 amended and passed so that we can move payroll taxes to a national consumption tax. That's what it's called back. Look, we have that tax on the table. We can eliminate all payroll taxes, all of them. We move to a 20% VAT tax, and we can make the Chinese pay for our health care. That's what I want to do.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to question 3. Should legal immigration policy favour family unification, or should it strictly be based on merit? If elected, do you plan on submitting or signing on to legislation which would focus on a merit-based system while at the same time protecting the American worker? Another issue that involves legal immigration is that of importing skilled labour, primarily from China and India. With a 43% increase in American STEM graduates in the last decade, the practice of importing skilled labour jobs are clearly competing with American college graduates. Big Tech, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Business Roundtable lobby Congress to keep raising the cap on foreign workers, saying they need the workers and American students do not have the skills. What is your opinion on this topic, and would you support the continuation of this practice, or would you support legislation to curtail or stop it altogether? Please explain. Dan.
America First policies, merit-based. We need to get rid of this chain migration. We need to get rid of the lottery visa. I was down, I think I was the only candidate, for sure, down at the border last weekend, down Laredo. And I saw how bad it is. It's only getting worse. So folks say, well, what did you do when you become a congressman? Well, I met with a number of angel parents. Those are parents that had their children taken from them, killed. And they inspired me. I told them the first act when I get into Congress is to codify President Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. We're going to call it the Angel Act.
Okay, Travis.
Gonna make you ask it again.
Okay, no problem. It's a long one. Should legal immigration policy favour family unification, or should it be strictly based on merit? If elected, do you plan on submitting or signing on to legislation which would focus on a merit-based system while at the same time protecting the American worker? Another issue that involves legal immigration is that of importing skilled labour primarily from China and India, with a 43% increase in American STEM graduates in the last decade. The practice of importing skilled labour jobs are clearly competing with American college graduates. Big Tech, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Business Roundtable lobby Congress to keep raising the cap on foreign workers, saying they need the workers and American students do not have the skills. What is your opinion on this topic? And would you support the continuation of this practice, or would you support legislation to curtail or stop it altogether? Please explain.
All right. So if I get elected to Congress, first thing I'm going to propose is to lock down the border completely for the next 5 years. There is a disaster at the border, and what people don't seem to understand, it's not just affecting Americans, it's affecting the rest of the world. We've got mothers and children who take birth control on their way up to the border because they know they're going to be raped by the coyotes. Children die on their way to America, and they're thrown in a ditch and left. It's a serious disaster. We need to close the border. Biden needs to come out and tell the world that it is indeed closed. Anybody coming in needs to be given medical care and sent back across the border. I believe in America first. We definitely need a merit-based system for anybody coming in legally. We need American workers, American graduates who get first choice in the top jobs. We're competing against China in our economy, and if we're not careful, we're going to fall behind, and that's not a place we want to be.
Thank you. Michael?
All right, to answer your question, my wife is in the process of getting her green card. So I support spousal and children immigration. Children of people who are here, who are citizens. Now, President Trump did that. He made that change. And I also support what Australia does. They have a great merit-based immigration system. It works for them. And so I would support that system here in the U.S. What I will never support is illegal immigration. It undercuts the working American people by reducing their average wages. And I would send every one of them home. Look, we cannot challenge Biden on the border. That's the federal government. But we can declare an invasion. And I'm asking Governor Abbott to do that.
Okay, Mr. Harris.
Make no mistake about it. Joe Biden has created a public health and humanitarian crisis on our border. And he did it on purpose. He did.
Yeah, I did.
When we left office, we were building a wall. We had ended catch and release. We negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy, which renegotiated how asylum claims are sought in this country, saying you got to stay over there while we adjudicate your claim. And we had trusted third nation agreements that were complementary to the Remain in Mexico policy. And then I, as chief of staff at HHS, was a senior Trump official that stood up the now famous Title 42 order that shut down our border once and for all to illegal immigration and to COVID-19. And I fundamentally disagree with my friend right here just said that we cannot challenge Joe Biden. I'm sorry, we can challenge Joe Biden, and I'm standing up to him right now. I'm not even waiting until I get elected to Congress because of the disaster he's creating and the fact that he is ruining Texas and going to ruin America. It's why I sued him last week, irrespective of any election, not as a candidate for Congress, but as a concerned American who loves this country. And I am suing Joe Biden. I'm taking him to federal court to force him to implement the Title 42 order that President Trump and I put in place, and we are going to win that lawsuit. I absolutely have standing. I explained it at great length on Laura Ingram's show the other night. I would love for you and everybody here to go watch that.
Okay.
So everybody here, everybody on this ballot will say they want to secure the border. Ask yourself a question. Who has proven they can go to Washington and actually secure the border? Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, we now move on to our fourth and final question. If elected, for what committees would you prefer to be assigned? What caucuses would you join? Would you pursue an American First agenda. Travis?
All right, two committees that I would love to be part of. First one is Homeland Security. With my background, I believe I can be an essential part of that committee. I have connections all over this nation with the current job I'm doing with the Grand Prairie Police Department. I have connections down at the border. I can be a go-between between the committee and law enforcement. I can get inside information from the people that are down on the ground. Second committee I would be interested in is the Ways and Means Committee. I know that one's a long shot. But be able to fight fraud, that's a perfect committee to be on. There's a lot of waste and a lot of fraud in a lot of our programs. It needs to be addressed. We need to take that money and we need to put it back into our economy. The Freedom Caucus is one I'm very interested in. The America First policies, obviously, is something I support as a veteran, a police officer, and a small business owner.
Very good. Michael?
There are two committees I'm particularly interested in. One is a subcommittee which deals with Medicare. I'm interested in Medicare. I want to improve it and I want to make it cheaper. Some people, well, they don't like Medicare. They say it's single payer, they say it's government intrusion. But the fact is, it's just health insurance. And it's cheaper. So that's my interest. The second committee will be on the Labor and Education Committee. I'm interested in education. I want to stop constructivist education. I want to move to mastery and merit. If you want to succeed in life, you don't get it by getting free lunches. You get it by working hard, like I have. I came from an orphanage, and everything I've had has been from that orphanage. And so I want to help change our education system and make it a successful education system. And we're not number 25 in the world, we're number 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you for that question. Let me start off by saying I have nothing but tremendous respect for every one of the people that I'm sharing a ballot with in this election. But you asked the question about would you be an America First candidate. Let me be just very clear. I'm the only one on this ballot that worked with President Trump for the vast majority, almost the entirety of his administration. And my guess is a vast majority of all the things that you love that came out of the Trump administration, a massive percentage of them came right out of my department that I was overseeing on behalf of President Trump. So not only would I be an America First candidate, I wouldn't just be an American First candidate starting on day one. Ladies and gentlemen, I would be picking up right where I left off when I was working for President Donald Trump. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so now we have the opportunity for each candidate to give a 1-minute closing statement. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really going to get in trouble. I apologize. Please, go ahead, Dan.
No, there's so many great committees. And the problem is when you get there, you have to suck up to the establishment to try to get in. I've seen a number of my friends that have become congressmen. Madison, Arthur, they gave me the crappiest committees. You know what? He's on TV every single day fighting for the America First policy. And, you know, we say, okay, great. You know, I want to be on Ways and Means. That would be awesome. You know, I want to be on, you know, all these top committees. You have to prove yourself when you get there. That's how you get up. Or you kiss an ass. I'm not going to do that. Education, obviously, is very important to me. VA, I would be honored to be on, continue President Trump's veterans policies that he pushed through. When I get there, I'll tell you this, I will be on TV every single night fighting for our people here in our district. So, with that being said, are you next, brother? No. Okay.
You closed us out.
God bless Texas, God bless America.
Amen. Keep it here because we're going to do a 1-minute closing statement for each candidate. Michael, we'll begin with you.
Great. Each of us has our own priorities, and my priorities may not be yours. I'm not asking you to send me to DC to be a nice guy, somebody's friend, or sit quietly in the backbenches. Over the past 5 years, we watched our nation evolve into something unrecognizable. I cannot say that I supported President Trump unequivocally, but I did support his policies. I believe that the Communist Chinese Party represents the greatest challenge to our nation and to our way of life. And I cannot sit idly by and do nothing. Maybe it's old-fashioned, but I took an oath of office back in the day, and I'm still bound by that oath. I'm not going to work for a big corporation or a DC lobbyist. Send me to Congress to represent you. America is at war with itself and with China. Sending someone to do nothing is not an option. Which candidate did Donald Trump endorse? Let that thing sink in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brian.
All right. Thank you so much again for having me here tonight. I'm Brian Harrison. I am running for office, so it'll be the honor of my life to be your voice in Congress. Let me go back to why I'm running. We've talked a lot about policy tonight, but I've got 4 beautiful children, the oldest of which is 6, the youngest of which is almost 1. And ladies and gentlemen, we are in a battle for the future of this country. I want them to have at least a fighting chance of growing up in a country that was as free as it was when I was their age. And right now, with Biden and Pelosi in charge, I do not think that's going to be possible. And let me tell you something else too. I don't know that this country has 3 years left to course correct. And the most important thing in front of all of us when we are voters in the Texas 6th Congressional District is who do you trust to go to Washington and not just talk at talks. It's easy to be a conservative Republican here in Texas. It's hard to go to Washington and actually make things better, and it's even harder to prove that you can beat the Democrats, to prove you can beat the socialists, to prove you can lock horns with the national media, to prove you can take on the bureaucracy and beat them, and to do only one thing when you are in that seat and make a decision, and that's to do the right thing for your friends, your families, your neighbors, your loved ones back home. I'm the only one in this race who's proven he's willing to do it. It'd be the honor of my life to represent you in Washington. I'd love to have your vote on Brian Harrison. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Dan.
At the end of the day, this race is going to come down to one thing. You're going to look at all these candidates, okay? And you're going to say which one is going to go up to Washington, D.C. and be their voice. I've been there for 15 years, 20 years.
Not true at all. I was running a small business in Ellis County 3 years ago. Only left because I was asked to work for President Trump. No. I'm sorry. No.
What I'm getting at is what I'm getting at is you're going to look at everybody across the board. You're going to look at these are the other state legislators that are here today. You're going to look at wife, who's here today. You're going to look at a former WWE pro wrestler, graduated from a great college, you read a bill of rights. That's what you're going to vote on. You're going to vote on the person that's going to go up there and is going to fight for you. And going to be that messenger. I'll tell you this, I'm the biggest messenger up here. I have 5 million people, I think it was, as of today, that viewed what I wrote on the internet. Next week they're going to do the same thing. And if you want that loud voice to come out and make sure that everybody in Washington, D.C. and the United States hears us, well, I'll be the loudest voice in Texas. I'm definitely the loudest voice here in District 6.
Thank you, Dan. Travis.
I've been serving this 6th district for the last 12 years as a police officer and a small business owner. Raised my family in this district. My kids are going to go to school with your kids and grandkids. I love Texas and I love this community. 4 different times in my life, I've taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. It's not an oath I take lightly. If elected to Congress, I'll take that oath once more. I give you my word, I'm going to fight for the 6th district, I'm going to fight for Texas, I'm going to fight for the future of the United States. I'm young, I'm motivated, I'm full of energy. People have asked me, you lack experience, what makes you think you can run for Congress? And I'll leave you guys with this. It doesn't take experience to stand up for what you believe in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes group one. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Everybody takes 5 minute break. 5 minutes.
Okay, we have a 5-minute break, guys. 5-minute break to go to the restroom, order another drink, eat some food, buy some books. Whatever you like.
Long ones. Well, hey. And there's only one.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I guess I could have done that.
Is she with you?
No.
I'm proud of you. Hey now. Okay, so what It's still running.
Especially when might become complex. Multiple questions in one question. Nobody should do it.
They're shorter than the other questions. I'm going to take this up. I'll give you this one. They're going to get on too.
Consolidate your drink.
I was just going to make
Oh, okay.
Here's the set. There is no statute.
I get it. Yes, sir.
2 years ago, she said you have 2 years with a data to file for the because first of all, the training is supposed to be simple. That's why we say you can now have something did you see that letter the opposing counsel wrote? I mean, the opposing counsel filed a motion for some reduction. He filed one 21 days. This is some guy out of Dallas. And he literally told the judge, you abuse your discretion. You should rank me by summary judgment. He wrote a letter saying that. That's how arrogant these people are dealing with. They are just, it doesn't matter what the law says, Ron. The law just shouldn't apply to us. I'm so dead. Hey, all of our biggest, but you can't say everything from legal immigration to legal immigration is where we are now. All the because the Supreme Court decided.
So this is the deal with
Not only other birth certificate. Parent one and parent two, and they want to take gender all together. They don't
and it's rotated. Oh, well, when did he open that? You would
So yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you can find your seats, please.
No. What?
You're not saying no to me. You're not saying no.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, could you find your seats, please?
Turn up that.
Ladies and gentlemen, could you find
There
your
you
seats,
go.
please? The candidates for group 2 are Susan Wright, Mike Egan, John Castro, and Sery Kim.
Y'all figured it out.
That means Castro's real?
Thank you.
Well, can you tell him, is he coming down here to ask him?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you find your seats, please. Okay.
Okay.
We have the same format as before. We're going to begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate, 4 questions for each group, with a 1-minute response for each question. All questions are in writing and have been submitted to the moderator, who is me, and there will be a 1-minute closing statement. We are going to begin with Susan Wright.
Is he coming down here?
Yes, sir.
Close, really close? Okay. Good evening, everybody. thank you first to the two clubs and the underwriters. This is a lot of work. I appreciate it.
Susan, put that up. Speaking to my
Like right here?
Yeah.
It's like on my mouth. Is that good?
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Lick the ice cream.
This is like really on my mouth. Okay. I'm Susan Wright. I am a Christian. I'm a grandmother. I'm a neighbor. I'm an activist. I'm a patriot. You all know me. I've been here 30 years working with you in the trenches, on politics, on community issues, on civic issues. And because you know me, you know that this is not something I ever wanted to do. This is not something I ever planned to do. But I'm doing it. I'm running to complete Ron's work, to fulfill his legacy, and represent each one of you. And I'm not running to fill this unexpired term alone. I intend to win. I intend to run for re-election. I intend to represent you for a little while. I intend to run and win to be the kind of representative that Ron was, which is to represent each and every one of you. Ron considers himself a district representative in Washington, and that's what I intend to be as well. I care what you think. I will not be on the TV every night. That's not who I'm going to meet with and represent. I'm going to represent you. And I'm running because you all asked me to. So many in this room reached out and asked me to run, because you know me. You know that I didn't just show up today. You know that I didn't just decide this was an open seat that needed a voice to speak out. You know that I've been here with you working for all of these things, for all of this time, and you know that I will stand up for you, for our conservative values, and for the United States. You know that, because you know me. I will be the same person in D.C. that I am here, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Mike?
Hi, I'm Mike Egan. Thank you all very much for having me tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a veteran. I'm a businessman. I'm a husband to my wife, Missy, who's here with me tonight, and a father to 3 wonderful boys. I'm running for Congress because the American government has stopped working for the American people. And I want to make the government work for the people again. The first priority is to end this assault on our values by the left. And that's a big challenge. And we need people that are up to big challenges. I've chosen hard paths in my career. After 9/11, I didn't just join the Army. I went in to be a Special Forces officer, and I accomplished that. When I got out of the Army, I wanted to go to the toughest business school I could find, and I went to Wharton. I graduated with honors. When I left business school, I wanted to help the biggest companies in this country overcome their most strategic and challenging problems, and I earned a place at the Boston Consulting Group, and I did that. While at the Boston Consulting Group, I helped project manage the transition plan at the Pentagon for the Trump transition team. I was working for President Trump before he was in office. And I did that successfully and earned an appointment in the Pentagon to help carry out that transition plan. Point being that I've had some big challenges that I've taken on, and I've been able to overcome those challenges, and that's what we need in Washington, is we have big challenges and a big fight, and we need a fighter. And I am that fighter, and there is nobody that's going to fight as hard for the people of the 6th District as Mike Egan.
Thank you, Mike. As you can see, I think we are down one candidate here this evening, Mr. Castro. We are going to move on to Sery's opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Sery Kim, and I am running for Congress for 4 reasons: facts, law, morals, and accountability. Facts. We were lied to for the last 1 year and 2 months and stayed at home because China created coronavirus in a Wuhan lab. The fight in Washington, D.C. is to lie. I am running for Congress because of the law. I read the Mueller report 19 times. I sat at the decisions desk at Fox News defending the president, and his entire presidency was put under a cloud of a lie. Washington, D.C. lies to you. Nancy Pelosi lies to you. AOC lies to you when she can figure out actually how to talk. The third reason why I'm running for Congress is morals. We are all here because we are pro-life. We are all here because we believe in Jesus Christ. We are all here because we are pro-Second Amendment. Come for me, and I will use my hairspray and red lipstick to take you out. Yeah. This is what Congress is about. And the most important reason why I am running is accountability. I was Chief of Staff of Election Day operations for President Trump in Pennsylvania. I have worked for him for 5 years, including his 2016 campaign. I have worked for President Bush. I have served in Congress working as Chief Oversight Counsel for Darrell Issa. And let me tell you, the only person that is held accountable is you. The Democrats lie and are not held accountable. AOC can't even build an IKEA table, and she is not held accountable. You should vote for me, because I know the government inside and out, and I know you inside and out, and I would appreciate your support. Sery Kim for Congress.
Love it. Thank you, Sarah. That concludes our opening statements, and we move on to questions. 4 questions, the first of which is, please name 3 main roles of a member of the House, and what will be the first issue you plan on tackling in Congress? Name 3 main roles of a member of the House, and what will be the first issue you plan on tackling in Congress? We will begin with Susan Wright.
Well, the first, again. So the 3 main roles, we're going to vote, we're going to represent you, and we're going to uphold the Constitution every day, every time I walk in there, every time I get out the voting card. And my main focus, is that it?
What will be the first issue you plan on tackling?
The first issue I plan on tackling is, it's twofold, I guess. I want to secure the border. We have to secure the border. That is a human crisis out there. A human, it's a crisis. I'll just leave it at that. Secondary to that is we have to begin working on the deficit. And the two of them begin to go hand in hand because the cost of trying to deal with the mess at the southern border is costing us a fortune, but we have to deal with those 2 things. My number 1 thing, though, is going to be the southern border. Thank you.
Mike, name 3 main roles of a member of the House, and what will be the first issue you plan on tackling in Congress?
Well, the roles of the members of the House are obviously to vote on bills, proposed legislation. But I think the most important role is to represent the people of the district. You're their representative, you're their voice in the halls of Congress. For me, the issue that I would tackle first would be election integrity. It's very clear that we all have questions about what happened in the last election. Look, there's plenty of other countries that have elections. China has elections. Russia has elections. Nobody believes in the outcomes of those elections because the foundation of those elections are corrupt. We can't allow the same thing to happen to our election system, and we need to make sure that we have integrity in our elections.
Thank you, Mike. Sery.
Sery Kim. So I think the role of Congress is to stop problems and also to prevent problems. The number 1 responsibility of any member of Congress that goes up in May would be to hold China accountable. I am Asian American, and I have never felt discrimination because I blame China for the problems they have actually created. They are the ones that caused COVID. They are the ones that steal our technology. They are the ones that manipulate the borders. They are the ones that make you feel guilty because you want to shop at the small business down the street as opposed to paying for the child labor that they have with the Uyghurs. They are responsible, and it is Washington, D.C.'s responsibility to hold them accountable. And as it relates to fixing problems, well, God bless America. I hope that I actually can read the Constitution and understand how to implement it.
Thank you, Sery. Okay, that brings us to our second question. How do you plan on maintaining contact with your constituents and making sure they stay informed of what is happening in Washington? How will you enable accessibility between your local and DC offices and the people you represent? How do you plan on maintaining contact with your constituents and making sure they stay informed of what is happening in Washington? How will you enable accessibility between your local and DC offices and the people you represent? Mike.
Well, one of the most enjoyable experiences about this campaign so far has been knocking on doors and talking to voters where they live. And getting out in the community and making sure that I hear from people in not established forums, where they are, meeting people where they are. I think that's the critical thing. I would have town halls. I would have a town hall every month per district at a minimum. But more importantly than that, I'd want to get out there. Go to the BFWs. Go to the different organizations in the community that typically don't get to see politicians and hear what they have to say, because that's the important part. In terms of maintaining contact between the DC and the district offices, I mean, I think we would maintain correspondence, and I would be back in the district as much as I possibly can, because I definitely don't want to be in the swamp.
No. Thank you, Mike. Okay, we now go to Sery.
Well, I've had a great time going around and meeting each and every one of you. And if I know anything about the 6th District, if I know anything about the residents of Arlington, you constantly call, you constantly email, you constantly hold people accountable, because quite frankly, you're smarter than us. And so any person who decides to go into elected office and don't hold themselves accountable to y'all, I'm pretty sure you have my cell phone number. And so I think oh, you want it? Well, what I would say is that people go to Washington, D.C. to become famous. They go to Washington, D.C. to become rich. They go to Washington, D.C. to get elected to higher office. But I'm the child of janitors. I grew up with absolutely nothing. My parents cleaned your toilets and emptied your trash cans while I slept on your floors. And now I get to represent you in Congress. And so what I would say is that as I was growing up, you're the people that made my American dream possible. So why wouldn't I want to stay in touch with you?
Thank you, Sery. Okay. That brings us to our third question. I'm sorry. Susan. Yes, okay. How do you plan on maintaining contact with your constituents and making sure they stay informed of what is happening in Washington? How will you enable accessibility between your local and DC offices and the people you represent?
Thank you, Nick. So you're my boss. So I will talk to you like I've been doing for all of these years. I will meet you where you are. I will come to your clubs. I will come to your community events. I will bombard you with emails and with newsletters. We'll do social media. We'll do all the things, right? But mostly I'm going to come and talk to you. I've been doing it. I love talking to you. You're my friends. Many of you do have my cell phone number. I'll have town halls as often as we can. Capitol Police discourage the in-person ones, but we can do them some. And I will do town halls as much as I can. My interest is in hearing what you want, what you think, and taking that back to Washington and acting on it. And I will do that like I've been doing with you all along. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, question 3. What do you propose Congress can do to tackle the problem of illegal immigration, human trafficking, and what is going on the southern border? What do you think should be done with the 30 million and growing illegal aliens who are already here? We're going to start with Sarah.
So easy, 3 solutions. 1, as a child of legal immigrants, my parents waited in Korea for 10 years before they came over here. The number 1 problem that you have, and the reason why the government is so inefficient, is volume. You have 1% of government officials trying to manage over 30 million illegal people. That is impossible. At the border, they have taken 127 CBP officers from the 5 sectors and moved them into processing. You cannot have a functioning legal immigration system if the entire force of government is focused on illegal immigration. 2, as it relates to quotas, these countries' quotas were based upon a 1970s quota system. They are not indexed to the census. At that time, we welcomed Chinese people into this country. I don't want them here at all. They steal our intellectual property. They give us coronavirus. They don't hold themselves accountable. And quite frankly, I can say that because I'm Korean, and you cannot, right? And the third thing is that we all realize that most of the people that live in our communities are outstanding, amazing people. You cannot look at someone and say, oh, you're illegal, oh, you're legal. I've had so many people question whether I was legal or I was illegal until they heard my Texas twang. And so I think that the main thing that we can do with these 30 million people is to sort out the legal process, ensure the quotas are back to where they should be, and 3, if you're here illegally, get out.
Yes.
Well, the first thing that I would do is secure the border. That's that we've got to stop the influx at the southern border. And once we do that, we can begin to deal with what's going on here. We've got to address our immigration system. It is antiquated. That's the understatement. We need to get back to our merit-based system that we used to have, and we need to get back to a regular order of things. The regular order of things tends to work really well in the world. So that's the 2 things that I would do to start off with that. What we do with the people that are already here, we have to process the people that are already here. The vast majority of them that are here have been in our system in some fashion. They just fallen through the cracks. They just walked in, and nothing else has been done with them. So we need to staff up. We need to sort that out. Once we get that done, we can have the conversation so that we can find out what you want us to do with immigration. What is what the American people want on immigration? What are the limits? I believe everyone agrees it should be, or the vast majority of us, it should be merit-based. And I think we should start with that after we seal the borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Mike.
My father-in-law is a Haitian immigrant, and he is one of the proudest Americans and most conservative Americans that I know. And he finds it extremely offensive that people can come here illegally and just flout the law. I think we need to secure the borders, and that's by reintroducing 3 of President Trump's policies. We need to complete the wall. Yes. It doesn't say don't come here, it says use the door.
Yep.
We need to make sure that we stop catch and release. We can't let people into the interior of the country before they have been adjudicated on the Mexican side of the border. And then third, we need to make sure that people aren't asylum shopping. You don't just get to pick the country you claim asylum in. You can't pass through 5 countries. This is in alignment with international norms, and it's just not acceptable. Unless I could claim asylum in Fiji, in which case I might. But no, and I think in terms of what to do with the problem that we currently have, I think that we need to support Customs and Border Patrol and ICE and make sure that we deport the folks that are here illegal.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Okay, our final question for this group. If elected, for what committees would you prefer to be assigned? What caucuses would you join? Would you pursue an American First agenda? We're going to start off again with Sery.
I would like to serve on the Defense Committee, mostly because my fiance is an active duty United States Marine, and I would like to thank you, Semper Fi. I take all the credit for it. As far as caucuses are concerned, you know, caucuses are PR pageants. They don't actually do anything with these caucuses. What you want is a member of Congress who joins the caucus of I read things. And so one of the great parts about being someone as nerdy as myself is I actually read the bills that are passed. And I think we should hold people accountable in elected office, not vote for things they don't. And as far as what Congress means to me, I would like to address the issue of Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, and Liz Cheney. They are about control. They are not about conviction. If they were about conviction, they would have stood with President Trump after January 6th. If they were about conviction, they would not have badmouthed him after January 6th. If they were about conviction, they would be in Congress writing legislation as opposed to doing photo ops at the border. I think it is shameful that members of Congress are doing photo ops as opposed to the business of representing the United States by writing legislation, voting on legislation, and protecting our great Constitution.
Thank you, Sery. Susan.
So yes, I would always support an America First agenda. The committees I would be interested in, well, first, I will be the very lowest seniority in the entire House, today I'm sworn in. I will take whatever slots they have. You don't get to pick, they're all by slots. I know there is a slot open on Ed and Labor and Foreign Affairs, those were Ron's committees. I spent the last year on many Zoom meetings with those committees, so I know a lot about those. I would love to serve on Ways and Means. I would really love to serve on Ways and Means, address our tax issues. I'd like to go back and codify the Trump tax cuts. I would like to begin the addressing of our debt and get back to regular order again on budget and committees and hearings and markups. Caucuses, I would love to talk to the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus is by invitation only. They decide if you're a good fit for them, and then you have a meeting. So I'm excited to, I can't commit to anything yet, but I am endorsed by Chairman Andy Biggs and Chip Roy and a number of others. So that's where my focus will lie. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. That concludes our question portion of this particular group. We're going to move on.
Yep.
Come on.
It's hard, we lost one, it's all out of order.
We still love you.
I'm sorry.
All right, in terms of committees, I think my experience speaks most of the House Armed Services Committee. I believe in strong national defense, and I think I can make an impact there, especially in light of many of our near-peer competitors like China building up capabilities in their militaries. I would also love to be on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, particularly because there is a high-speed rail project that is looking at going through this district. Yeah, and I would love to get in the way of that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then lastly, I'm in banking right now. I would love to be on the Financial Services Committee and make sure that we direct a lot of these funds through some of our local federal credit unions as opposed to the big New York banks, so they make all the money in New York, helping people out. Caucuses, would love to be on the Freedom Caucus. And then America First, you bet. I fought for America. I'm 100% America First. We got to do right by the people of this country.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, that concludes this question portion for this group. We now move on to the 1-minute closing statements for each, and we'll begin with Susan Wright.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you once again. By the end of tonight, you heard through 2/3 of us now. By the end of tonight, you're going to hear from all of us up here, and we all agree on the vast majority of these issues. We're pro-life. We're defending the Second Amendment. We're America First. We're going to defend the border. So what this really comes down to is trust. Who do you trust? And how do you trust people? You trust people with your relationships. You build relationships with them, right? You trust them because you know them. You know them when things are rough. You know when the chips are down. You know when there's no glory in what you're doing at all. And they're still there. And that's what I offer you. I offer you 30 years experience living, working. Our family lives here and being active in the 6th Congressional District. 30 years. I know this place. This is home. It is going to be home the rest of my life. I can represent you very well in Washington. I'm asking for your vote. Susan Wright for Congress. Thank you.
I want to also extend a thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all, and thank you for the great questions. I agree with Mrs. Wright. I do think it's about trust. and who you can trust to do the right thing under tremendous pressure. Who do you know has been tested under fire to do the right thing when they had to? And for me, I've been to combat. I've been deployed multiple times. I know what it takes to do the right thing against all odds. And that's what I would do for the great people of the 6th District. Thank you very much for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you, Mike. Sery Kim.
I am so incredibly grateful to each and every one of you for what you've done to sacrifice so that I can live this American dream. And the fight in Washington, D.C. is one question. When you see AOC's face, do you see mine telling her she's wrong? When you see Ilhan Omar's face, do you see me telling her you married your brother to come against me? When you see Nancy Pelosi's face, do you see me telling her, have you ever read a bill, or do you need to pass it before you understand it? So that's the question I ask of you. Each and every candidate is amazing. You all could probably run for Congress yourself if you wanted to fundraise, which is terrible. And I would just ask you to consider Sery Kim for Congress. Not because I'm so much better than anybody else, but because I will take the fight to the squad and they will not know what hit them.
Okay, that concludes group 2. We're going to take a 2-minute break. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah. 2-minute break before we have group 3. Group 3 will comprise of Jake Ellzey, Michael Wood, and Adrian Mizher.
Yeah.
My turn for break.
Okay. Y'all stay tuned. We got 3 more candidates, not rounds.
Gary, you're really getting comfortable there, guys. Master Benson, getting there.
Some of them,
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. You have to join the Republican Women of Arlington. Oh, good. Are you guys welcome to me? Did I do a good job? Did I do a good job? I'm there. I'm full of sass.
I think it's fair.
Oh, yes. He has it. The guy who looks
Is that the one?
Oh, no. Yeah, my Marine's in Monaco. I do. This is my card. I'll get some. Can I come right back?
Oh, yeah. We just want you to
He has it right there. No, he's waving his hand with the red flag. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a card? Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, this is so fun. I have this is Martha. Nice to meet you. I think I really remember you. just let me know. My local concessions. Yes. No. It's always I do again. Concessions. Oh yeah, no, thanks for making it. Pete is hilarious. So he's gonna come to the district and go around. He's down at the border right now. He's like looking at all the borders. I think he's back here. Well, I know you've been out. No, we're back in person. Nice to have you back in there. Yes, I'm going to get my car. Oh, yeah,
I guess it's going to be a runoff. How many come down to two? That's the process. Having this experience. Otherwise, I don't think we're just names. The literature that comes from my house, so
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please find your seats?
Go around the other way. You gotta round them up.
Ladies and gentlemen, could you please find your seats?
Glad you're here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin our third group here tonight, consisting of Representative Jake Ellzey, Mr. Michael Wood, Mr. Adrian Mizher. As with the two preceding groups, we have a 2-minute opening statement for each candidate, 4 questions for each group, each at 1 minute response. All questions are in writing and have been submitted to the moderator, and then we will conclude with a 1-minute closing statement. And I will try not to forget anyone this time. So, 2-minute opening statement. We're going to begin with Representative Ellzey.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all for being here. What?
Supposed to stay
seated.
No, you don't stand up. Did you want him seated or standing?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ask everybody to be seated in the other one.
Oh, okay. All right. Y'all good for standing? Okay. Thank y'all very much. Have y'all had enough to drink to make me look pretty yet? Not yet? Okay. More up here. My name's Jake Ellzey. I'm a 10-year Navy veteran. Carrier pilot, 830 carrier landings. I'm a husband of 1, father of 2, and I've been shot at by people who intend to kill me, so nothing that happens in Washington, D.C. is going to scare me. Ecclesiastes 1:9 said, "There's nothing new under the sun." And these are dark days. And there have been dark days before, and these are dark days now. In fact, if the United States was a ship, we'd be adrift, listing to the left, taking on water with nobody at the helm. The Biden administration seems intent on opening our borders, politicizing our military, making us dependent on foreign oil, and destroying election integrity. But we're not going to stand for that. In fact, your representatives down in Austin right now are addressing every one of the Texas GOP priorities here in Texas, and that's what we'll do in Washington, D.C. if you send me there. So if you're like me and you're a person of faith who believes that God created this country, we're not going anywhere.
It's always darkest right before the dawn, and we're going to turn this country around, and it's going to be bright once more. So send me to Washington, D.C., lend me your vote, and don't give up the ship. All right, we're standing. All right. Stand away. My name is Michael Wood. I'm a Marine Corps combat vet, I'm a small business owner. I'm the father to 4 small daughters. I'm pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-oil. I think the government's too big and tries to do too much. I think the economy's not growing fast enough. I think that our borders are not secure. I still think that the best social program is a job. And I want to build a national security strategy and a military that can stand up to China. The relationship between China and the United States is going to define, for better or worse, the 21st century going forward. I'm in this race because this is the first battle for the soul of the Republican Party. We used to be a party of ideas. Unfortunately, we've turned into a cult of personality, too comfortable with conspiracy theories and QAnon. I'm in this race because it's time for the Republican Party to move past Donald Trump. I'm not a never-Trumper. I voted for the man in 2020. I understand why you did as well. However, his actions since Election Day, including January 6th, have forfeited his right to ever lead the party of Lincoln again. We can move forward. In fact, we have to move forward. I don't want to see what happened in Georgia or Arizona or Virginia happen in my beloved Texas and across the country. If we don't move forward now, we're going to lose this country for a generation. I don't want us to stay a minority party. The stakes are too high. That's why I'm running. I understand a lot of you might not be able to hear this, but I'm the only Republican, one of the few in the country who's willing to speak plainly to you because I respect you. There's a raw and a noble patriotism amongst the American people, and it's been taken advantage of. It doesn't have to be this way. We do not have to be this way. Send me to Congress, I'll rebuild this party, and we can start fighting back the way we're supposed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Adrian.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Adrian Mizher, and I'm running for Congress. I am in love with this country. I am in love with its founding principles. I am so thankful, as I know everybody in here would agree, that the Almighty led us some almost 250 years ago to the divinely inspired documents on which we are founded. And I want to take us back to the principles that we read in those documents, our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution that is based upon that. We have an inheritance of this great heritage that has been given to us, but for a long time now, so many in our country have been trying to throw that away and change us and take us a different direction that nobody in this room I know wants to go. We have become afraid of the woke mob, the left, which is a cancer and a plague on our country. It is something that needs to be beaten back. It is something that needs to be fought against aggressively. Too many times we have Republicans who say a lot of nice things when they're trying to get elected, but when they get into office, they turn to jelly. They become spineless, and they don't fight for the values that you and I hold dear. And I want you to elect me to Congress because I will not fall prey to that problem. I will continue to fight tirelessly and aggressively for our founding principles, the things that we all believe in, against the lurching leftward that we have been doing, at least for my entire lifetime. Adrian Mizher for Congress.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, the first question that we have tonight is, name 3 congressmen now serving that you most admire and why. We'll begin with Jake.
Well, I'd like to start with Louis Gohmert. Louis reads every bill. Louis reads every bill. He reads every word of it, and he takes principled stands. And that's something to be admired. It's very hard to read those pieces of garbage that come from Washington, D.C. I don't know how he does it in 24 hours. Chip Roy is another one who does that. And Chip is a principled man. You can see that from the votes that he's taken. And sometimes he went against the tide. But sometimes the leader has to go against the tide, and he did what he thought was right.
I believe that he did that very thing. And it was a congressman, not necessarily a state rep, or
Well, it
US
says
rep.
congressman here,
Congressman.
but I mean, it could be as
Okay,
a congressman.
well, in Congress is Senator Ted Cruz, who his entire career, from the time he was a young man, was defending this very document, and he can, he has to read it. I have to read it. He doesn't even have to. And he has been working very hard on our behalf, and he's a great representative as a senator here in Texas.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Michael.
Whenever we talk about politics, we always say that we want representatives and politicians to go to D.C. or go down to Austin and do what's right, do what they think is right, stand up on principle, not fold to political pressures. Liz Cheney is a modern-day Iron Lady. She is an American Margaret Thatcher, and we need to recognize that. It was incredibly brave what she did. She's the bravest woman in the Western Hemisphere. Along with this list, I would say Congressman Adam Kinzinger, another brave American patriot. And then finally, Senator Ben Sasse, a man who understands this country, who loves this country, who fights for this country. They're not too popular right now, but that is because they did the right thing, and they're going to be popular in 10 years.
Sure.
We're going to get to where I am eventually. We can do it right now, or we can do it after we lose to the Democrats for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Mark. Adrian. Okay, well, I definitely want to go a completely different direction than that. My favorite congressman, as it stands right now, is Thomas Massie out of Kentucky. I don't know how many know Thomas Massie. He may not be the most famous, but what I like about Tom Massie is he stands up for what he believes in, even if it has to be against his own party. This man believes in smaller government. This man believes in cutting the budget. And you can tell it because he's taking bullets from his own side. Yeah. He acts in a way that frustrates even people who have the same political party as him. And that's the kind of leadership that I want to see in Congress. That's the kind of leader I want to be. Jim Jordan is another person who I admire greatly. Somebody with great strength who is willing to take the fight to the left and not be afraid and cower in the corner when they call him a racist and a bigot and a homophobe and a sexist and a Nazi and all the other names that we get thrown at. Jim Jordan stands up for what he believes in, and that's the kind of congressman I want to be. And since we've picked a senator already, I want to pick Rand Paul for the same reason that I picked Thomas Massie. Somebody who's willing to stand up for what he believes in, even if he has to fight the members of his own team in order to stand for his principles.
Yes. Thank you, Adrian. Okay, we move on. Yes. To the second question. Do you think big tech is guilty of blatant censorship of conservative thought, news, and opinion? Recently, they used their power to censure and money. Recently, they used their power to censure and influence our elections. What do you propose to do in order to rein in their almost monopoly-like power? We're going to begin with Michael.
So this is an incredibly complicated question. I think that Representative Ellzey quoted Ecclesiastes earlier about nothing new being under the sun. We really are in sort of uncharted territory whenever it comes to social media, Twitter, and whatnot. I think conservatives need to take a deep breath and calm down before we start to get government involved in something they shouldn't be involved in. We're going to go around and do a 180 without even thinking about it and go back to a place where we were against in the 1970s and the 1980s and find ourselves defending some sort of fairness doctrine, having government involved in what's the right opinion, what's the wrong opinion. Political speech is sacrosanct in this country. The last thing we need to do is have government get involved in that. I understand you're worried about the incredible power that these companies have. We're going to work through this. The absolute worst thing to be would be to try to impose a solution on the country from Washington, D.C. that'll do all sorts of damage to political speech in this country.
Thank you, Michael. Adrian.
Big tech is definitely censoring conservative thought. I think that was the beginning question, was it not?
Yes, it was, yes.
It's unquestionably stacked against us when we go out onto social media. Not only the companies that are running the social media are stacked against us, but most of the people I encounter, I don't know how you guys act on social media, but most of the time it's me and about 9 liberals making fun of me when I'm out there. So it's definitely a world that is stacked against us. But I would caution us. Often oftentimes I find Republicans, when we are frustrated with something, we turn to what is a leftist Democrat solution, which is more government. It is not a good idea to have the government censoring these big tech companies. The best thing to combat bad speech is good speech. The best thing to combat bad tech companies is a good tech company. And fortunately, I hear that Donald Trump is going to start a social media platform, which I know everybody will be a member of right away. The best thing that we know about a free market is competition in order to fight against those people who are censoring us out on social media.
All right.
Thank you, Adrian.
That was a good answer, filled with energy too. I like it. I like the way that you put that. He's not wrong, but media writ large resembles something from the 1970s in Russia. They have taken over what we can and can't say. They've taken over what they are willing to report on. They no longer have investigated anything. I remember Joe Biden from 1988. The man that's running this country right now, or whoever's running behind him, is not the same man, and nobody's batting an eye. We're in dangerous, uncharted territory. You want to talk about a constitutional crisis? We're in it right now. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that you and I have been censored. If they are monopolies, they should be busted up, but we shouldn't be getting government controlling everything. But you and I have been censored, and there has to be a better way. But we also need to have better media outlets that are willing to report the truth, not the propaganda of the current administration.
Thank you, Jay. Our third question tonight is, do you think Congress has a role to play to ensure our elections are fair? What legislation would you support to ensure our electoral process is fair so that there will never be a replay of the November election? Do you think President Trump was justified in questioning the results of the November election? Just repeat that question one more time because there's a lot in there. Do you think Congress has a role to play to ensure our elections are fair? What legislation would you support to ensure our electoral process is fair so that there will never ever be a replay of the November election? Do you think President Trump was justified in questioning the results of the November election? Adrian, we will begin with you.
And the next time the question is that long, I want to see your 30-second card go up for you.
Woo!
President Trump was correct to question the results of the November election. No question. There is a lot of smoke there. Now, I will be honest, I do not have proof that we can take into a courtroom and prove for sure that we were cheated. But man, there's a lot of questions. And the fact that we can't ask those questions, the fact that we're shouted down and told that we're crazy for even thinking such a thing is a real problem. Whether the election was stolen or not, the fact that some 40-odd% of us think it might have been is a huge problem for this country and must be dealt with. And those of us who believe that it is should be given the respect to ask those kinds of questions. I am going to again caution us as Republicans. Our Constitution tells us it is not the federal government's responsibility to run elections. If we're going to believe in the Constitution, we sit up here and we quote it a lot, then we're going to have to believe in it all the way. It is the states that decide how their elections are run. And if a particular state wants to allow cheating or ignore cheating, there's very little that we in Texas are going to be able to do about that. So no, I do not support legislation from the federal level like H.R. 1 that the Democrats are trying to cram through. I don't want to do Democrat actions for Republican points.
There's nothing in Article 1, Section 8 about the federal government having anything to do with elections. That's a state role, and we're doing it right now here in Texas. The Briscoe Payne's House Bill 6, we're going to address it. House Bill 574, 335, 1128, and on and on and on. We're strengthening our laws here in Texas. There is no role that the federal government plays in that. Was President Trump justified? Of course he was. 1946, LBJ would not have been elected senator and therefore eventually not president if it hadn't been for fraud. 1960, JFK would not have been elected president if it were not for fraud. The ability to ask the question, is it fair to question the election results, is inherent in the First Amendment. You have every right to question that. and not be shouted down or shut down or sent to jail for it. This is a dangerous time. Constitutional crisis is here.
Thank you, Jake. Michael.
Elections are handled at the state level. We do a very good job at the state level. I would vote against H.R. 1. With a country as large and diverse as ours and chaotic as ours, it's always easy to find examples of just about anything you want to find examples of. There was no widespread fraud that made the 2020 election illegitimate. Sidney Powell lied to you. Rudy lied to you. Fox and Newsmax lied to you. The Congressional Republicans lied to you. The President lied to you. I'm the only person in this race who respects you enough to tell the truth, and I always will. The Trump administration had their chance to make their case in court. They couldn't. It is easy to say things on Twitter. It is easy to say things on social media. It's easy to say things on Facebook. It's another thing to say it in a court of law. They had 2 months chance after chance in front of 60-plus judges, many of which were Republican appointed, some of which were Trump appointed, to make their case. They couldn't. The peaceful transfer of power in this country is incredibly important. Never before in American history have we had a president try to get in the way of that. It's ripping at our civic fabric. These lies have to stop, and the 6th District is going to be where it starts.
Our last question is, if elected, for what committees would you prefer to be assigned? What caucuses would you join? Would you pursue an American First agenda? We'll begin with Jake.
Dadgummit, that was 3 questions. House Armed Services, Energy and Commerce, and Homeland Security. I served your caucus. What was the 3rd?
Would you pursue an American First agenda?
Of course I would. That's what I fought for my entire life. I've been under oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States for 30 years. Since I was 18 years old, July 6, 1988. Don't count my age, I've got good makeup on. I've been defending this country my whole life, and that's what I want to do for you in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ellzey. Michael.
Armed Services, Ways and Means, and then Veterans Affairs. I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan. I came back with scars on all 4 of my limbs from the Taliban. I came back with the bullet in my leg that I cut out myself. I love this country more than anything, except for my daughters. The Freedom Caucus used to stand for something. There was a time about 10 or 12 years ago when it stood for limited government. Now it stands for show horses. I can't join that group. I don't know what they stand for anymore other than getting on TV. I wish it wasn't the case. I hope that they change. In terms of supporting an American First agenda, we're the party of Lincoln. We're the party of Reagan. We used to have a platform. In 2020, we didn't even have a platform. We just passed a thing that said we're going to support the American First agenda. I don't know what that is, but I know that we're a big country, a diverse country, a complicated country, and a great political party. You can't just walk around saying, Durka, Durka, America First.
The committees I'm most anxious to serve on would be Budget and Ways and Means. Our federal budget is out of control. We spend way too much money. And Congressman Mizher wants to spend most of his time working on that issue. If we can't get that issue right, it almost doesn't matter what we believe on anything else. The federal behemoth is going to keep growing and inserting its tentacles into all of our lives and limiting our freedoms and our liberties. I do want to join the Freedom Caucus. Those are the people I've seen in Congress that fight hardest and loudest and most aggressively for our values, and that's something I want to join and participate in. What was the 3rd part of the question? Oh, well, that's right. That's why I forgot. I don't even know why that is a question. Of course we would pursue an America First. Why I live in a world where that's even asked, as if somebody would disagree with that, is something I don't understand.
That concludes the question portion for Group 3. We now move on to the 1-minute closing statement for each person, and we will begin with Michael.
I hope you at least respect a man who could come here and tell you something that is hard for you to hear, something that might be unpopular in this room. I think a lot of times people who come, you wonderful people, you patriotic people who come to these things, sometimes we fold in on ourselves and forget that this isn't the entire country. This isn't even the entire district. All right? I don't want to see what happened in Arizona, Barry Goldwater's Arizona, happened to Texas, a state that voted for the Democrat, has 2 Democratic senators right now. Let me close with this. I always thought that if I got into politics, it would be 15 or 20 years later. This is not how I wanted to enter the political arena. This has got to be said. It can be said now. We can learn these lessons now, or we can learn it after we lose in 22, 24, 26. If you don't like what I've said here, please go home, think about it, pray on it. I think that we're going to get here eventually, and I very much appreciate your support.
Thank you. Representative Ellzey. Thank you, and thank you all for being here. It is always darkest before the dawn, but the dawn is coming. It's going to start in 2022. We're going to take back the House. We're going to take back the Senate. We're going to start righting the wrongs from the Harris administration. You know what I say is true. And then in 2024, we're going to take the White House back.
All right.
Yeah. Better.
I've defended this country my entire life. So has he. And I admire him for standing up for what he believes every veteran has the right to do so. I happen to disagree with him on some of these things, but I admire him for saying them in front of this crowd. I want you to know that of all the 11 candidates that I've watched tonight, nobody in this room has one single fear that you're not going to be represented well in Washington, D.C. with whomever you choose. I am blown away by the quality of these candidates. Whoever goes to Washington from this group is going to serve you very well. I hope I'm him, but I will support whoever it is. So God bless y'all. Thank you very much for being here.
Adrian,
We got one more.
oh, there's a sound.
Yeah.
The anchor lag. Thank you, Nick. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Mizher is going to be focused on one issue above all else. And that is shrinking the size of the federal government, getting our budget back under control, getting us back to within the constitutional limitations that we should be following. If we can't get that right, you've heard us all give our opinions on lots of things tonight, immigration, gun control. I don't know what we asked about gun control. We all agree on abortion. We're going to have a lot of the same answers across the board. And we're all going to agree on this too, or at least we're going to say we do. But if you have all of these choices, now is the time to pick somebody who is going to fight for that. If we cannot get that under control, it will not matter what we think or believe on all those other issues. We are going to be continually overwhelmed. Tyranny is coming. The federal government is growing and growing and growing, and it must be stopped. And you need to elect somebody who will concentrate and focus on that, almost to the exclusion of everything else. I would ask for your vote. Adrian Mizher for Congress. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate your interest and your patriotism. I know that all of the 11 candidates, or 10 candidates that showed up tonight really care about each and every single one of you. And I think you did them a great privilege by listening to all of them. Feel free to mill around and drink and eat and do all of that kind of stuff. I do have my books outside. Come and see me. You can get them signed, autographed, personalized, and come and stay in touch. Thank you so much.